So speaking of booster clubs and parent volunteers, let's talk a little bit about how we can get our parent volunteers organized and run our booster organizations so that we get the best relationship between the organization and the school orchestra program. So parent volunteers, whenever we're working with volunteers, whether it's in a booster setting or any kind of a orchestra volunteer job, figure out what you need done. What are the roles you need filled before you even start the year? What kind of things are you going to need help with? Where can parents and volunteers be useful? And go ahead and create either an interest survey or some kind of document so parents know where they can plug in and help. If you hold some kind of meeting or parent night at the beginning of the year, this is really helpful then to give out that information. You can use some of the, the online sign up geniuses and things like that. But, really going ahead and getting that information out to parents like, hey, I really need somebody that can run the video camera at the concerts, and go ahead and plug someone in there. And that way they know ahead of time what you need. I think it's also really helpful when you're creating that interest survey or those jobs and roles that you need filled, if you'll put how much time is required. Like, for example, if you need somebody to help blow balloons at the parade, maybe that's a 2-hour time commitment. So, that way parents know, okay, this is a 2-hour time commitment on a Saturday. I can do that. Maybe another parent can't do that, but you need ice picked up for an event that you're having. That's a 30-minute commitment, maybe ice picked up and dropped off. So that'll help parents kind of gauge what they're able to help with as well. So if you can hold a meeting though and get your volunteers organized early, and then you just get them on a reminder system as the event gets closer. Keep your parents in the communication loop often. Now with email or different platforms like Remind and some of the different free platforms we have as teachers, it's really so many ways we can communicate. So the more ways you can communicate, the better. Even as a parent, sometimes I'll get the email and forget to look at the email, but I'll get something in Class Dojo and it'll jog my memory to check the email. So newsletters are super helpful. I send a newsletter, even at high school, every 2 weeks to our orchestra parents. I do 2 newsletters a month. And that way they're getting the dates and the information, and it's going out to students and parents. And it goes out in email, it goes out in Remind, it goes on our website, it goes in our student platform. So as many ways as you can get that communication out and often is really helpful, because if you don't get them one way, maybe they'll get them another. I think anytime you're working with volunteers, many hands make light work is a great approach. I think you can probably not have too many volunteers. I would rather have a couple parents having less to do and standing around than not have enough help. So always kind of over plan for what you may need. If you have parents that a lot of your families that English maybe is not their primary language spoken at home, provide communications that are in translatable formats or that is in a language appropriate to your population. So if your school is majority Spanish speaking, maybe you include both English and Spanish documents. Or one of the newsletter programs I use will translate for parents into 130 different languages with the click of a button. Now, a lot of the Remind apps and talking points and all those will translate for parents too. So finding ways to communicate with parents that are also accessible for our parents is really important. And knowing your population and what you need is very helpful to make sure that parents get the information so that they can come and help. Use tools like Sign Up Genius to help organize parents, any kind of format that works for you and your program. Also, consider jobs like having parents donate items for events, like a case of water, a pack of paper. Make an Amazon wish list that you can send out to parents. Sometimes parents can't donate their time, but they may be willing to donate a ream of paper or some board markers. So create an Amazon wish list for your program so that they can maybe donate some things, or maybe they can come help measure uniforms, or maybe they can cut out laminating. So offer up jobs that are more than just volunteering them being up at the school. And then have a system set up to remind them of when they're supposed to be up at school if they've volunteered to help at a concert or if they volunteered to come and stuff envelopes. So, either have a parent that's in charge of like a volunteer liaison, or you find a way using something like Sign Up Genius or Remind that you can notify parents when they're going to be coming up to school to help out with some of their volunteer roles. So if you teach at the high school level, and in some counties, even at the middle school level, you're maybe able to have a booster club organization. And, for a lot of schools, they're either have had booster clubs or then they kind of fell by the wayside or they're restarting, or some of us have had boosters for a long time, but maybe need a refresher. So anytime you're going to start a booster club, you first want to check with your administration. You want to make sure it's allowed, and you want to get a handle on what are any local procedures, because every district is different. Every school even may have internal procedures. At our school, we fall under the athletic director, and we have a whole set of paperwork we have to fill out with the athletic director for our booster club. So make sure you have a good handle with your admin before you go crazy starting a booster club. Once you've got that approved, then you want to set up a meeting with parents to help go ahead and get the organization started. To get started, you need to go ahead and figure out what's your mission and your vision. What leadership roles are necessary? What's the structure of the organization going to look like? What are your financial goals for the organization, and what are the logistical goals? Set your meeting times for your general meeting, your executive meeting, or any committees you may have, and then kind of your action item list to move forward so that you can get the organization set up. So when you're setting up a booster club, there's some things you need to get started. You're going to need a name for your organization, and it's going to be a name that's not taken somewhere else. So, you're going to have to go through and file with all the Secretary of State. You're going to need an EIN number through the IRS. You're going to need to create bylaws. The best way to create bylaws is to find another local organization that's a booster club at your school or one of the other music organizations and see their bylaws and kind of use that as a jumping off point. That way you're not always reinventing the wheel. You need to create some financial forms to help keep your accounting organized. You're going to need to incorporate through your Secretary of State, and every year you're going to need to update your corporate registration. Next up, you're going to want to file a 501c3 request through the IRS to become a tax-exempt organization. That's definitely a job if you have a parent who has an accounting background or some kind of attorney or tax background. That can be really helpful when doing that paperwork. Once you've done that, you have to have those things in order to set up a bank account at one of the local banks. And when you do that, you're going to have people on the signature card. As a teacher, you should never, ever, ever be on a bank signature card. The whole point of a booster organization is to shield you from financial handling of the money. It should keep your hands out of the money and protect you and create that extra layer of protection. So when you're setting up a bank account, this should be something that your parentals that are helping on the organization are setting up. So they'll set up the signature card, but you need to know who's on there. But it's very important that you do not put your name on the account, but it's the organization. You may find it helpful to have a P.O. box for bills and other things. You don't want to use anyone's home address because booster officers will change year to year usually. So a P.O. box is nice because then it doesn't come to the school and get lost in your mailbox, but it always goes to one place that belongs to the organization. You maybe want to set up email addresses for your treasurer. So maybe like for us, we have Duluth Orchestra treasurer, Duluth Orchestra main account, Duluth Orchestra webmaster. So you set up these email addresses in Google that you can turn over year to year. And that way, again, it doesn't go to a person's individual email, but it always goes to the same email address no matter who's monitoring it. A website can be very helpful to get set up. That may come a little later down the road. Also, using Dropbox or Google, some kind of storage that everyone can access. And again, the files aren't living on one person's computer and then that person rolls off the booster club and all your files go with them. So it's really a good idea to have some kind of data storage where everyone can access and that lives on even when someone rolls off the booster organization. So with money, money is one of the biggest things that can get us in trouble as teachers if we're not careful. And the same is true for booster clubs. Whenever you're dealing with money, you must have a clear procedure in place. Financial procedures are so important. You need to have 2 check signers. It's a pain, I know, in this day and age to get people together to get checks signed, but it's the safest way to protect your organization and make sure that checks are signed appropriately and that you avoid fraud. No organization for booster clubs should ever have a credit or a debit card. That's just common practice for booster clubs to never have those things. Again, it's just too hard to manage and track. You want to have check request forms. Anytime someone needs a check, there needs to be a formal request form done so that it can be filed and kept into the appropriate budget account. You want to have cash verification forms or a money verification form. Anytime money is collected and it's picked up at the school, then it needs to agree. Or anytime cash is collected, it needs to be counted and checked before it leaves the building so that then when it's deposited, it should match. It's a good idea to have some kind of lock box for the classroom or locking. We have a mounted wall box that locks that all the kids drop their payments into, and that way the kids never hand us money. The less that you can handle money, the better, and that way that stuff goes right into the box and it's out of your hands, and then the treasurer picks it up, we do the verification form, and it's out the door. And then lastly, your organization needs to be bonded. You need a financial bond to protect your organization in the unfortunate circumstance that there is an embezzlement or some sort of fund issue happens with one of your officers. If your organization is bonded, then you've got some protection for your organization and the money that you've collected. So this is an example of a check requisition form or a check request form. So if I need to request a check to GMEA for LGPE fees, I would say make check payable to GMEA, the amount, and then what office it comes out of, meaning it would come out of fees, performance evaluation, something, the booster category or the budget category. And then if it's a reimbursement, I would go there, like if it was something I had paid. For example, I bought some things off of Amazon for the banquet, then I would attach my receipt, put why I was getting reimbursed, etc. Something like this is really good because then it goes into a file, which then once the fiscal year is complete, the file box comes to school and is stored at the school in the orchestra room in the file cabinet. And so we have a booster file cabinet that just lives in the orchestra room, and that way all the records every year get completed into the orchestra room. And so we can go back last year and see what was spent, and it's all there. This is an example of a cash verification form. This is whenever we're counting money at the end of an event, then we would mark down how much money. This is 2 people count this. So in order for it to be correct, we're sure that it's been counted twice, and then all of it goes to the bank, and that's how the deposit is made. So that way, again, all of it agrees, everybody is on the same page, and you know how much cash was taken out of the building before it goes to the bank, so that the deposit should match what was paid out or what you counted out at the school.